Dinner was going just fine until my sister decided to turn it into her personal bragfest. With a smug little smirk, she leaned forward and said, "Oh, and I bought a car, too," like it was some casual afterthought. My parents lit up like Christmas lights, acting like she'd just pulled off a miracle. You'd think she'd found the secret to world peace the way they started gushing over her. Mom clapped her hands together, practically glowing. "Wow, sweetie, you really earned it," she said, like she couldn't be more proud. Dad gave an approving nod, real serious-like. "That's a well-deserved reward for all your hard work." Hard work? I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Melissa, my sister, had never held a real job, not even once. But with the way our parents spoiled her rotten, she never had to. They treated her like some kind of princess from day one, buying her whatever she wanted, covering every bill, and protecting her from even the smallest hint of adult responsibility. And me? I was more like the background noise. Just the son they never really banked on, not when they had their golden child to fawn over. So I just sat there, quiet, all the way down at the other end of the table. I ran my fingers along the edge of my glass, took a slow drink of water, and kept my face blank calm. Melissa, still riding high, tossed a shiny curl of hair over her shoulder like she was on a runway. "It's a black convertible," she said with a grin. "Top-tier everything, custom leather, killer sound system, and oh. The guy at the dealership said I was a natural at negotiating." Can you believe that? Yeah. I could believe it. Probably because she wasn't spending a dime of her own money. I glanced over at Mom, half expecting her to offer up some half-baked excuse about where all that money came from. But nope, not a word. Instead, she turned to me and said, "Daniel, you should try being more like your sister. She really knows how to enjoy life." And that was it. That's when something in me snapped, quiet and final. I set my glass down, smoothed the front of my shirt, and slowly pushed my chair back as I stood up. The room went dead quiet, so quiet you could have heard a feather hit the floor. Then, with a calm, steady voice, I began to speak. That's when their little world started to crumble. Melissa lifted one perfectly shaped eyebrow at me, still wearing that smug little grin. Mom looked downright puzzled. Dad let out a sharp breath through his nose, like he was bracing himself for one of my so-called tantrums. But I wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. Not this time. I calmly folded my napkin and set it down next to my plate. Then I looked Melissa dead in the eye. "That car you're so proud of," I said evenly, "did you even bother to check where the money came from?" Her grin wavered for a split second. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice a little too breezy. I turned to face our parents. "You didn't tell her, did you?" I let out a dry chuckle. "Of course you didn't. That would have meant admitting what you did." Mom squirmed in her chair, shifting her posture like the cushion had turned into a bed of nails. Dad's knuckles whitened around his fork. Melissa rolled her eyes like I was the one being ridiculous. "Daniel, seriously, what is this about?" I leaned forward just a little, my voice calm and level. "Melissa, all that money you've been spending? All the cash they've handed you over the years? It wasn't theirs to give." I paused just long enough to let that sink in. It was mine. You could practically feel the air thicken around the table. Melissa's forehead creased into a frown. "What?" she muttered, caught somewhere between confusion and disbelief. I didn't rush. I let the silence build before I laid it all out. Every extra dime, every family asset, every inheritance, they funneled all of it to you. My portion? Gone. Just like that. Business? They signed it over to you. The house? Your name's on the deed. The investments? My savings? They drained it all behind my back, didn't even bother to call. Dad slammed his fork down, rattling his plate. "That's enough," he snapped, but I heard it. Beneath the anger, there was something else. Fear. Melissa gave a short, nervous laugh. "You're being dramatic," she said, but the edge in her voice betrayed her. I didn't flinch. "Go ahead. Check your accounts." For the first time in her life, she actually looked unsure. Her fingers trembled a little as she pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. I watched her scroll, and watched the color slowly drain from her face. Mom cracked first. Her voice was soft, pleading. "Daniel, sweetheart, we had no choice. Your sister needed stability. She needed help." I cut her off cold. "And I didn't?" She faltered, her mouth hanging open like she couldn't quite find the words. But before she could come up with anything, Melissa sucked in a sharp breath. "What the hell?" she snapped, looking from her screen to our parents. "Why are my accounts frozen?" Dad stiffened in his seat. Mom reached for her wine, her hand shaking. I let the silence hang before answering. "Because those accounts weren't actually yours." Melissa's head jerked toward me like I'd slapped her. "What did you do?" she hissed. I smiled, just a little. "I did what none of you ever thought I'd do. I grabbed my coat, folded it over my arm, and straightened my tie. I played the long game." Her lips tightened, her jaw clenched. "What does that even mean?" I glanced at Mom, then at Dad, and finally back to her. "It means everything you thought you owned, everything you snatched out from under me." I let out a slow breath. "It's mine now." The room fell into a stunned kind of silence, heavy and suffocating. But I wasn't done. Melissa gripped her phone like it might suddenly reverse time. Her hands were shaking. "You're lying." I tilted my head. "Am I?" Dad shot to his feet, his chair scraping harshly against the hardwood. "Daniel, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you can't just take what doesn't belong to you." I looked him straight in the eye. "That's funny, coming from you." He flinched. I turned back to Melissa. "You might want to give the dealership a call. That car you just bragged about? The payment won't clear." She blinked, confused. Then she started tapping frantically on her phone again. A few seconds passed. Then, with a quiet gasp, she looked up at me. "It got declined," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "And that's just the beginning." Melissa stared at the screen like sheer willpower could change the numbers staring back at her. Then she turned to our parents, voice rising. "Fix this." Neither of them moved. Mom opened her mouth, then shut it again, her hands clenched around the edge of the tablecloth like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Dad looked like a statue, jaw clenched tight. I slipped my hands into my pockets and let out a calm breath. "You still don't get it, do you?" My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. "There's nothing left for them to fix." Melissa's fists balled up. "You think you can just steal from me?" I laughed under my breath and shook my head. "Steal from you? That's rich. I watched for years while they poured everything into you, my share, my future, everything that was supposed to be mine, while I got scraps. I had to fight for every inch I gained. You floated through life on a cushion of lies and handouts." Mom finally spoke again, her voice shaky. "We did what we thought was best, for both of you." "No," I snapped, locking eyes with her. "You did what was best for her." She winced, like my words physically stung. Melissa scoffed, throwing up her arms. "Oh, get over yourself, Daniel. You act like you're some kind of martyr. You've got a job. A place. You're doing fine." I stepped in closer, my voice steady. "Yeah, and I earned every bit of it. No shortcuts. No handouts. You've never worked for a thing in your life." Then I let the next line hang in the air like thunder before a storm. "But now you're finally going to understand what it's like to have nothing." Her face went pale as stone. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You had no right to do this." I leaned forward, voice low but firm. "And you had no right to take everything from me. The only difference is I exhaled, calm and collected. I made sure you'll never get the chance to do it again." The weight of those words hit hard. Melissa was breathing unevenly. Mom looked like she was about to cry. Dad sat there, jaw twitching, fists clenched, but he stayed quiet. Because deep down, he knew. I had one. And they couldn't undo it. Melissa shook her head like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. "This is insane," she said, her voice cracking. "You can't just take everything." I took one last breath, steady and sure. "I didn't take anything, Melissa." I looked her dead in the eye. "I just took back what was mine." My dad pointed a trembling finger straight at me. "You ungrateful little," I raised a hand, cutting him off cold. "Don't." My voice wasn't loud, but it was solid, steady enough to stop him mid-sentence. "Don't start lecturing me about gratitude. Not after what you've done." He backed down, slowly sinking back into his chair. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "That business? I said, locking eyes with him. You handed it over to Melissa, thinking I wouldn't catch the fine print in the filings. I tilted my head, just enough to make the point hit harder. You really should have read the contract. Because the second that ink dried, the controlling shares? They were mine. His face drained of color like someone pulled the plug on him. I turned to my mom. And the house? I let out a dry chuckle. Remember last year when you begged me to help with the paperwork? You were too flustered to deal with it, so I stepped in. And I made sure my name ended up where it should have been all along. She gasped softly. Daniel, I raised my hand again. And those accounts? The ones you drained to bankroll every one of Melissa's impulsive whims? I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen a few times, and turned it toward them. They're frozen. Melissa lunged like she was about to snatch it out of my hand, but I pulled it back before she could get close. Nope. I shook my head. Not anymore. Fix this, she demanded, eyes wide with panic. I stared right back at her, calm as ever. You've been living off money that wasn't yours for years. Time to learn what life's like without a safety net. My mom let out this shaky little breath, barely holding it together. My dad just sat there, staring at the table, his fingers digging into the wood like he was trying to break it. Melissa looked like she was about to completely fall apart. I stepped back and brushed off my coat. Dinner was lovely, I said, letting sarcasm coat every word. But I think I've lost my appetite. I took a few bills from my wallet and dropped them onto the table. That should cover my meal. You three can figure out the rest. And then, without another word, I turned and walked toward the door. But this time, I was the one choosing to leave. On my terms. Behind me, a chair scraped the floor. Daniel, wait, my mom called out, voice cracking. I paused at the door, hand resting on the knob, but I didn't turn around. You can't just walk away from your family like this, she pleaded. We raised you. We gave you everything. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. Everything? I turned around slowly and met her tear-filled eyes. Everything? I repeated, louder this time. You gave her everything. I motioned toward Melissa, who still looked frozen in place, her hands gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. You threw every opportunity her way. Money. Support. A life handed to her on a silver platter. And me? I was left to scrape by. I had to earn every inch forward. I shook my head slowly. And now you expect me to feel bad for taking back what should have been mine all along? My dad's voice cut in, cold and dismissive. You're acting like a child. I locked eyes with him, steady and sharp. No. I'm done letting you treat me like one. Melissa finally snapped out of it, her face twisting in that angry, spoiled way I'd seen too many times. You think you're better than us, she hissed. Fine. Take your stupid business. Take the house. I don't need any of it. I raised an eyebrow. Is that right? Because without my money, that car you just bought? Gone. Without the house? You've got nowhere to live. Without the business? I gave her a slow, pointed smile. You've got nothing. She flinched. For once in her life, she couldn't argue. She didn't even try. My mom swiped at her eyes. Daniel, we never meant to hurt you. I sighed. Maybe not. But you did. That silence afterward wasn't empty, it was thick, heavy, full of everything they didn't want to admit. No one said a word. No one moved. I turned back to the door. Goodbye, Mom. And this time, I walked out for good. The night air hit me like a wave, cool, sharp, honest. As the door shut behind me, something inside me finally settled. Peaceful, almost. For years, I'd watched them live easy while I struggled to survive. They took and took, convinced I'd never fight back. But tonight? Tonight, I took it all back. I walked to my car, keys in hand, heart pounding like a war drum. I half expected someone to come chasing after me, Dad yelling, Mom crying, Melissa pitching a fit. But no one followed. They were too stunned. Too shaken. They'd never seen me win before. Not like this. I slid behind the wheel and stared straight ahead. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From Melissa. You're a monster. You ruined everything. I stared at it for a second. Then I let out a soft chuckle. She still didn't get it. I hit silent and started the engine. The house. My parents. Melissa. All of them faded in the rearview mirror. And I didn't look back. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. A week later, I started hearing whispers. Melissa tried to buy something stupid, probably another designer bag or some overpriced trip to find herself. But the card? Declined. Then another one. Then another. Panic started to creep in. She called the bank. Screamed at them. But her name wasn't on the accounts anymore. She had no access. And my parents? They couldn't help either. Everything was locked down, and I wasn't budging. The house? She didn't even make it a full month before reality set in. My lawyer sent over the eviction notice. That same day, my mom called me, desperate. You can't do this, Daniel, she cried. She has nowhere to go. I let out a breath. She had my money for years, Mom. Where'd it all go? Silence. Then a whisper. She spent it. I let out a humorless chuckle. Then sounds like her problem. I hung up. 3 weeks later, my dad finally called. Not to say sorry. Not to make things right. Nope. Just one last chance to guilt me. Be reasonable, Daniel, he said. Family takes care of each other. We're your parents. I leaned back in my chair, thinking about what he just said. Then I asked, calm as can be, tell me something, Dad, when was the last time you ever took care of me? The line went quiet. Dead quiet. I gave a slow nod. Yeah, I said. That's what I figured. Then I ended the call. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. Melissa and my parents ended up losing everything they stole from me. The house? Gone. Sold off. The business? Still running, stronger than ever, with me at the helm. The bank accounts? Permanently locked. They couldn't touch a dime. And me? I finally had what was rightfully mine. For years, I was treated like the backup plan. The spare kid. The one expected to clean up the messes and smile while doing it. But now? The roles had flipped. They were the ones left empty-handed. And me? I slept like a baby. The months rolled by. Not a word from any of them. No calls, no apologies, no fake birthday texts trying to reel me back in. I thought maybe they'd fight harder. Maybe throw guilt around like they used to. But nope. I realized pretty quick once they saw I wasn't backing down, they didn't have a leg to stand on. They'd lost their safety net. From what little I heard, Melissa drifted around, couch to couch, blowing through the last of her favors. Tried working too, but real jobs aren't kind of folks who think the world owes them something. My folks? They downsized hard. Sold off anything that wasn't nailed down just to scrape by. Without me paying the bills, life came at them fast. Did I feel bad? Not for a second. One afternoon, I was sitting in my office going through some reports when my assistant knocked. Sir, there's someone here to see you, she said. Says it's personal. I didn't even need her to finish. I already knew. Melissa. I sighed and leaned back. Send her in. She came in, real hesitant. Nothing like the arrogant, sharp-tongued sister I grew up with. She looked worn down and skinny, tired, clothes way less flashy than usual. She sat down across from me, fidgeting, hands twisting in her lap. Daniel. I raised a hand. If you're here for money, save it. Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue. I don't need money, she mumbled. I don't know what to do anymore. I stared at her a moment. Figure it out. Her eyes got glassy. You don't understand. I lost everything. I let out a quiet chuckle. Now you know how it felt. She blinked fast, looking down at her lap. I was horrible to you, wasn't I? I didn't rush to answer. I wanted to see if she meant it, or if this was just another act. After a pause, I said, yeah. You were. Her lip trembled. For the first time, I saw something real in her. Regret. She didn't beg. She didn't try to guilt-trip me. She just looked small. And tired. And lost. Eventually, she stood up. I won't bother you again, she said quietly. I just needed to say I'm sorry. I watched her walk out, and for a split second, I thought about calling her back. But I didn't. She had to find her own way now, just like I had. After she left, I sat there for a long while, staring at the door. I had pictured that moment so many times. Her coming back to me broken, finally understanding what she'd done. But it didn't feel like some big, satisfying victory. No dramatic music, no sweet revenge. Just silence. And you know what? That was enough. All those years I spent begging for recognition, trying to earn their love, waiting for someone in that family to treat me like I mattered, it all felt so far away now. Like a bad dream I'd finally woken up from. They were never going to see me. Never going to choose me. And I had finally stopped waiting. I took a deep breath, turned back to my desk, and focused on my work. My business. My life. The one I built myself. I wasn't giving them another second of it. Over the next year, I heard bits and pieces about them. Melissa never really found her footing. Hopped from job to job, none of it stuck. But to her credit, she never showed up at my office again. My parents tried to keep up appearances, but the truth got around. They sold their second car. Then the downsized house. Last I heard, they were renting a cramped apartment across town. Someone told me my mom cried the day they moved in. I didn't call. I didn't check in. I didn't owe them anything. Then one night, my phone rang. Not Melissa. Not my folks. It was an old family friend, someone who'd watched everything go down from the sidelines. I thought you should know, she said gently. Your father's not doing well. I didn't say a word. He's in the hospital. Your mom, she asked me to call you. I leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Now they wanted me to come back? Now. I closed my eyes and let out a breath. Thanks for letting me know, I said. And that was it. I hung up. Never called back. Never visited. My father passed 3 months later. I didn't go to the funeral. Melissa tried calling me afterward, maybe thinking grief would magically fix what they broke. But I didn't answer. Some folks might say I'm cold for that. But after a lifetime of being treated like an afterthought, after all the lies and betrayal, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. They made their choices. And I made mine. Years passed. My business kept growing. I built something real, surrounded myself with people who respected me, cared about me. Folks who didn't just take. And one day, I looked back on everything that happened, everything I'd survived, and I realized the truth. I had never really been part of their family.